Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session of Node.js. Today, we will be looking at modules. Before moving forward, let's discuss why we should learn Node.js. Well, first of all, I would like to show you this tweet from a guy named Jason Mays who works at Google. Uh, he tweeted a few days ago saying, so JavaScript made it into space. So a few weeks ago, SpaceX launched uh, their mission, new mission into space, and they used JavaScript for this dashboard kind of a thing that you see in the photo. Um, so that's one thing. JavaScript is not only everywhere but also in space. Second thing, I would like to show you this Google Trends page. Google Trends starting from 2004, but Node.js was created around 2009 or 10. So from that point onwards, you see there is a constant upward trend in Node.js. And if you compare it with, let's say, PHP or Java, so PHP and Java, as you can see, both of them have kind of a downward trend. And PHP is almost, I would say, 25, 28 years old now. Java is almost 30 years old now. Uh, and Node.js is hardly 10 years old. So that is why you see the graph of Node.js much lower, but as we know, Node has a upward trend. But why is that? Okay, let's try and understand. So there is this page on Debian.net. Debian is a very common, very famous Linux operating system used on servers, many of the Linux servers. And they have this page over here, which is the computer language benchmark scheme, which is basically different set of algorithms implemented in different languages, and then they test the performance of those algorithms in the different languages. The Node.js comes under the JavaScript language. So if you open that, you see that Node.js wins in two places versus Java. In many of the other tests, it's pretty close to Java. And not to mention here that Java is a compiled language. Node.js is a scripting, it's a scripted language. There is no compilation in Node.js, but still it's pretty close to Java in many cases, except this one where Java wins by a bigger margin. If you compare it with PHP, now PHP is also a scripted language, so is JavaScript. And if you compare PHP and Node.js, PHP wins in two areas, and for the rest of them, Node.js is a clear winner with a huge margin in some of the cases. Okay, similarly, we can compare with Python. Python, again, a scripted language, very famous these days, used in a variety of applications. Python scores a little higher in two cases. Here it's pretty close, and in the rest of the cases, Node.js wins, and in some cases with a huge margin. So we know Node.js is pretty fast. Okay, and if you have seen the first lecture, you know it's mainly because of the non-blocking IO nature of Node.js, the asynchronous non-blocking IO nature of Node.js. Also, one more reason would be Node is used by many companies these days. Some of the top companies also they use Node. One of them is Netflix. Uh, I mentioned specifically Netflix because everybody knows Netflix around the world. Many of us use it on day-to-day basis. Also, if you look at the overall internet traffic these days, you know I read somewhere that almost 20 to 25% of all the internet traffic these days is Netflix, because they streaming service video, HD and 4K video, it's huge. So yeah, Netflix, PayPal, NASA, SpaceX, we saw so many companies these days, they do use Node.js in one way or the other. So yeah, I think these reasons should be enough to convince anyone that hey, Node.js, it has already arrived some time back and is still going strong. So these were the reasons. Before we proceed to our topic, a word about Odin School. Odin School is a technology upskilling platform. We help you continuously acquire new skills, so stay skilled and stay ahead. Talking about me, guys, my name is Vijay Makhija. I started my career around 2010. Um, I started my career mainly with PHP based technologies. I started as a web developer. So I worked on WordPress, Magento, CodeIgniter in the early days. But in the past few years, I shifted totally to JavaScript based technologies. For the front end, I've used mainly React being kind of my personal favorite, but then I've also worked on Vue.js, a little bit on Angular, and also along these all these years I've used jQuery, Bootstrap, Material UI. Apart from web development, I've also worked on Chrome extensions and chatbots. So let's begin. Our agenda for today is understanding modules. What are modules? What do they mean? What are modules in Node.js? We'll look at some built-in modules in Node.js, and then user-defined and npm modules. So modular programming, modularize your code. What is module? Well, if you've studied computer science or even any form of engineering or computers, and if by any chance you have coded in C language, you would have seen this first line, hash include stdio.h, where you have a .h header file with some defined functions. You include that in your code, and then you can use functions in your own C code, like printf, scanf, getch, etc., etc. Also, if you've used Java, then in Java you can import the packages like import java.util.star, or you know the import statements in Java. If by any chance you have seen or worked on C sharp, there the syntax is something like this. So using system.text. Okay, so it's the using keyword in C sharp. So most of the languages, they have some form of what do you say, feature wherein you can use pre-existing code from other libraries, other frameworks, or code written by somebody else, which helps you manage your code much better in different files. So what about JavaScript? What does JavaScript has to offer to us developers when it comes to modular programming? So JavaScript does provide us with um, functionality of importing, exporting. But before that, let's look at which are the built-in modules in Node.js. We'll look at how things work. First, we'll look at the built-in things in Node.js, and then we'll move on to user-defined and npm modules. So there are many built-in modules in Node.js. The most common ones used are the FS, the file system module, HTTP module, path module, OS module, console. So, and there are many more. You can have a look at nodejs.org/API. Okay. So here there is a list of so let's say HTTP. So you can have a look at the full documentation of HTTP module over here, all the methods that there are in. many examples. Same goes for the console module, which will mainly use it for console log, that's for debugging purposes. There is crypto. Crypto is for cryptographic functions, uh, encode, decode something, or hash, those kind of things, mainly used for passwords or generating hashes. Um, there is there are others, many more. So we'll look. Okay, one more I wanted to show. Yeah, zlib, it's kind of a compression library, so which helps you create, different formats of archives, like gzip, zip, create archives, extract them, things like that. So there are a lot of modules built into this. There's the net module for network, uh, provides an asynchronous network API. Okay, and then there is the OS module. So OS module provides operating system related utility methods and properties. So this will help us in knowing what kind of operating system and underlying architecture, the hardware we have. Okay, and path. Okay, path helps us in provides utilities for working with file and directory paths. Okay, all right. So let's look at the FS module first. So it is file system. We'll look at basic file reading, writing kind of things. Okay, so the FS module provides an, excuse me. So the FS module provides an API for interacting with file system in a manner closely modeled around. Okay, so the way to use this module is this. So I'll copy this line, paste here. Let me zoom in the page a little for you. Okay. Uh, we'll have a look at a read example first. Yep, fs.open. So I'll create a file over here. So text file with some text. Okay, some random text. Now, so we have this fs.open. I'll copy this code, paste it over here. So fs.open, I have a file.txt. Second argument, R for read, W for write. There are some modes which I'll show you, and the callback function over here. Okay, so this is the arrow function syntax. Okay, if you don't know, this is the old, people still use it. You can use anyone that you want. So and that callback function will have two things, err comma ft. So first, in case there is an error, you would get something in this err variable or an object, and then the file data. Okay, we can call it data. Here the way they have done is fs.open, open the file, read it. In case there is an error, throw the error, and then once we get the data, um, hold on, let me, Okay, here is the fs.read file. This is what I was looking for. So that's only for opening and closing the file. What we want to do is read the file. So this is the better example for that. Okay, in case there is an error, throw the error. And in case there's no error, we get the file data in this. To run it, simply say node index.js. Okay, I'll apply the toString. Let's see if we get it that way. Yep. So the earlier that you see, we get data in some other format, but applying the .toString method on that, you get the data in string. In case the file doesn't exist, or you have an issue with the file name or something like that, so it throws an error. Okay, so you can handle that using try catch, since we are throwing the error. So you can just add a try catch over here. And just like console log, there is even console error. Okay, so in case you want to show exceptions or errors, it's better to use console error. Okay, so now we see we get a proper console error. You can do even console log, but then the function there is for a purpose. So there's even console warn. Okay, and you can, it's similarly what you use also in the front end. We also have the write file method. Okay, we can pass in the data in the second argument. Okay, so file data. If you don't know, whenever you're reading the documentation, and if you come across something like this, so there is this third argument is in square brackets. That means that argument is optional. Okay, so you can give it, otherwise if you just pass in a callback in the third argument, it'll take it as callback. But you can pass in options. Options are again given over here: encoding, mode, flag. Okay, so these are the flags for the file system module, the flags that you can pass in the options. So there is the ax, a plus. So a is for appending, so there are different modes for appending. There is r for the read, w for write. Okay, so you can pass in these additional flags if you want. They are pretty self-explanatory. For example, R is open file for reading. An exception occurs if the file does not exist. R plus is open file for reading and writing. An exception occurs if the file does not exist. Similarly, W, open file for writing. File is created if it does not exist. Or truncated if it is exists. Truncated meaning whatever data the file has, it'll just clear all the data. It'll wipe out the file and then start at the beginning. W plus, open file for reading and writing. The file is created if it does not exist, and truncated if it exists. WX is same like W, but then fails if the path exists. So if the file exists, it won't overwrite it. So for that you can use WX. Okay, so there are different modes given, okay, for that. So let's try out the write file. Okay, so here it is. So you can, so when you're going through documentation, just go through what kind of arguments any method takes. So first we know the file first argument can be a string or a buffer or a URL or an integer, anything. Second argument can be string, buffer, typed array, data view. So these are like uh, different kinds of data types in Node that you can use. We won't go into all of them, because then um, you will have to spend hours understanding each and everything. We'll study things on a need to know basis, the basic things. Okay, so callback again would be just a function. So let's try this out. So fs.write file, we don't have a message.txt, so let's see what it does. We'll have to create a data variable. You can create a variable or a constant as you like, or even like type in the new keyword let. So I'll say something. Okay, and then let's see what it does. The file is created. Okay, the message is there. Great. All right. Also, you can even pass in paths over here. So for example, we have a folder, say files. Okay, so I can say, so just basics of how you, so dot slash would mean the same directory in which this index.js file is, or just the file name again means the same thing, that the path is same as this file is in. Dot slash would mean the directory above. So uh, index.js is in, so as you can see, training, gray campus, node course, node demos. Double dot slash would mean a directory above. So cd dot slash. Okay, in the code you would always see forward slashes, because all these languages and all, they are all mostly Unix based, I mean created like that. So in Unix, Linux, Mac, in languages like C, Node, everywhere you would see forward slashes. Okay, Windows uses backward slashes, so that's one thing you need to take care of. So we can give full path as well, for example E, but then a single backward slash wouldn't work, because if you remember, if you have studied C, you would know slash n means a new line. So backward slash is used for different purposes. So here you would have to use double backward slash. I can like copy this, paste it here. So as you can see over here, slash n is being highlighted like this. So make sure you have double backslash. Okay, and then I can say files, okay, files. Okay, I'll run this file again, and the file is created. Okay, okay. So some things, so like this backward slash thing in Windows and forward slash thing in Unix, so the documentation doesn't teach all that. So a common thing where you might have an issue if you are new to this, so that's why I thought it would be good to show you all that. So we also have synchronous methods. So as you can see, this is we have discussed in the previous lectures that hey, node is asynchronous, node is asynchronous, but then now you would know what actually asynchronous is. Okay, so I wrote a console log after fs.write file, and there's a console log message over here. So after calling write file, so this console log appeared first, and then we got, although it is instant, although creating a file, writing into it might not have taken hardly a microsecond, but still this runs first, and then when the callback is called, you get this message. So there you go, asynchronous node.js. There's a synchronous way also, write file sync. Okay, so file data, no callback in that. I'll remove the path. Okay, so no callback for that. This is synchronous, but then to prove it, I'll have to, sorry. So there is a sync, read file sync method as well. So returns the contents of the path. I can say read file sync. Okay, read the file. Options, again, it is optional. So I just need to pass in the path of the file. I'll console log the data. Let's see how this goes. Okay, I'll toString the data. So this is synchronous. So here, no matter how much time it takes, node will wait for the file to be read and then data to be given to us. Okay, so enough about file system module. We have HTTP, path, OS, and console. So we'll take a look at the simpler one first, which is the OS module, which gives us information about the underlying OS. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so this is how you import that. And by now you might have noticed that I'm using console, but I'm not importing console like this, so there are some modules like console where you don't need to import or don't need to require like we do for FSOS. Both FS file system and OS and console, they all are HTTP, they all are built in, but then console is like you don't even need to import it. Okay, so OS dot, I'll just console log a few things. So os.arc, the architecture. What else? Constants, CPUs. Yeah, we can take a look at CPUs. What else? OS, CPUs. Returns the amount of free system memory. Oh, nice. Okay, let's see. It's like free. How much RAM is free in my system? We can take a look at that. Home directory, host name. Okay, network, platform. Yes, let's take a look at the platform. I think it's enough. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so platform is Windows, correct. Free memory is okay. I think it's giving in bytes. Okay, I have 8 GB of RAM, so this is what uh, this many KBs, 3211 MB kind of. Okay, almost it says 3 GB is free, roughly. So yeah, 61% memory used, 60% roughly of 8 GB. I don't know. Let's see. Divided by 0.6. So 4.8 is used. Yeah, roughly. Yeah, so it is correct. Uh, that's free. So nice. So we have this OS module that gives us a lot of methods that we can use, and we get information about the underlying system, the OS. Okay. And just a advice, whenever you're downloading Node, you go to the Node site, download the LTS version. Okay, the LTS is the long-term support version, so that's much better for it's much more stable. So you would find the current latest version will have more features and all that, but frankly we don't need all those latest features. LTS is the one that is stable, won't give you any errors or any surprises, so go for the LTS one. Okay. Okay, so we saw the OS module as well. Okay, talking about console, so there are a few methods. You can do console.clear. There is console log for logging, basically. There is, and these methods also work in the browser, so you can just, okay, so many things in Node also work in the browser because it's the same V8 engine. The language is JavaScript. You can try out here. So console dot, let's say, table. So if I have an object, and if I say console table, okay, it gives a nice table of that object. Okay, console log would actually give me object like this, so you can expand and open, but then table gives us much in a much nicer way. Okay, so that's table. If you want, there's also console warn. Okay, it shows us like a warning. Okay, and then in the console, so this is like general things that might help you in debugging in future. Even if you're a backend developer, right, chances are you will be opening the browser, seeing how things are. So this will help you in general. So there's console.warn. Okay, so again, console.log will help you no matter if you're a backend or a front end developer. Okay, what next? So console, we just had a look. OS, yes. File system, HTTP and path. So I will take path first. So if you go to this, okay, path, now we can use it like this. Okay, and make sure you use const keyword whenever you're importing anything like this or any module, so that if you have huge code base, a huge file, these path is like a common word, so you don't mix up a variable with that. Const would make sure you can't use that path word again as a variable, or you can't assign a value to it again. Okay, so that will save you some headache in case there is a typo. Okay, so so base name, they've given some differences between different kind of OS and architectures. So base name method returns the last portion of a path, similar to the Unix base name command. So many methods would be similar to Unix based commands. So if you look at the history, there was Unix first and then C language created. So in C also there are many methods that resemble Unix commands. Same goes for PHP. PHP is created using C and C++. So even in PHP there are many methods that resemble Unix commands or C methods of C. Same goes. So after all, for many languages, the architecture or the base is Unix or C. So you will find a lot of similarities. So path.base name, I'll remove these. Path.base name, and I've just given a path. It's not a real path. This is a Unix or a Linux path. Can't work on Windows, but then again, we can just check if this code works here. Gives us the last portion of the path, whatever it is. It might not even be a file, can be anything. Okay. So the last portion is a simple method to get the file name or the last portion of the path. Okay. Path delimiter. No. Yep. dir name. So this is opposite of what base name does. So dir name. Yep. The first one gives us the last portion. So this is base name, and the dir name gives us the path, just the path, in case this is a real path. Okay. Extension name. Ext name, in case there is a extension. So yep, .html only for this one. Okay, so in case there is index.coffee.md, it only gives the last part after the after the last dot. Okay, even if there is .index.md still. Okay, good to know that. Path is absolute. So what does that mean? So this is an absolute path. Okay, this is an absolute path. But right now I'm in index.js. If I say something like this is a relative path, this is a relative path. This is also a relative path. Absolute path means where you give the full path from the beginning. So in Windows, the path would start with a drive letter like C, D, or E. Okay, in Unix-based operating systems, Unix, Linux, Mac, the path would start with a /. It means that's the root. Okay, in Unix-based operating systems, the directory structure is different of your hard drive. Everything starts with a / in absolute paths. Even if you have drive partitions, it's not named CDE in Unix or Linux, but you can access all of those even with a /. So everything falls under one root. It's not the case in Windows, So path is absolute would let you know if the path is absolute or not. Okay, it works on Windows as well. Good to know that. Okay, so I think it supports / for Windows as well. It might be converting to double / internally. Okay. Paths.join would path different parts of different parts like this to one. So this is similar to array join, I would say. Okay. So you can pass in strings as many as you want, and all of them would be joined with a /. Okay, normalize would remove the double dot or single dot in a path if given. Okay, path.parse is a good one. Would give you. Okay, I'll comment this out. Okay. Again, this is a bad example. Path dot parse and again path. So don't do that. Okay. So we get an object. The root is / directory is this. So it gives us everything: the root, the directory path, the base path, extension, the name. Okay, everything. Let's see if it works for Windows path. Okay, so it works. And as you can see, it didn't take the path nicely, so we would need double backward slash. Okay, now we know. Also, you can try console.table over here. Okay, table nicely presented. Okay, so similar to absolute, we have also a path.relative from. So path.relative method returns the relative path from to based on the current working directory. So it gives you a relative path. Okay, nice. Let's try that. So path dot relative, I'll give it 2 paths. Okay, so let's say path 1 and path 2. So let's say I want to go from node demos to, let's say, gray campus only. So twice I'll have to jump out of the directory. Okay. Yep, double dot slash double dot. So to verify, you can just say cd double dot slash double dot, enter, and we are in gray campus. So great. Also, I can give it like crazy paths. Let's say ABC, DEF, something like this. Let's try. Yep. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll land on D and then ABCDEF. Correct. I don't have these directories, but then yeah, this is correct. You can verify. Just copy this and like type it after CD. You will know. Okay, it's correct. So nice. Now coming to HTTP module, one of the most important ones. Okay, HTTP module. So what should we try? Server? Yep. So we can import it like this. Okay. And then we can create a server like this. Okay. HTTP.create server. Create server takes in like one argument, and that is a function, a callback function. That function will provide you with 2 objects, request and response, which you can use to send a response to the browser. So now server.on, we have many events. For example, there is one called connection. I think it's connection or connected. Let's check. we have we have events, different events: check, continue, check exception. So common ones are close, connect, connection, okay, a request, so like that. Okay, and server.listen starts the HTTP server listening for connections. Okay, this is important. So server.listen, we have it over here. We've given it a port 8000. So common ports usually are 8000, 8080, 8888. So any number, but then these are the common ones used. Okay. Okay. I'll write hello world over here. So this, like, will send the response and then end at the same time. We don't need these. Yeah, this is enough for our example. Yep, just 4 lines. So let's try. So as you can see, node index.js, we the console seems to be frozen, but we actually have our server running. So let's try. So the way to check is 127.0.0.1 colon 8888, and you see we get hello world. Okay, response.end. So as simple as that, we have a server running, a local server running. Okay, this is one of the main uses of the HTTP module, is people use it to create a server. Okay, we won't be in real world, we won't be actually doing stuff like this. Instead, we'll be using frameworks like Express, and there are many more, Express being one of the most popular ones. So but there's a lot that you can do with this. Okay, with this module. All right, so we had a look at some of the built-in modules. We saw a small demo for HTTP module as well. We have a server running. Okay, so let's try and create our own module. Okay, simple one, very simple. So as you can see, it's a simple 3-line code: const pi, a value of pi, and then we export the function called area, the function that takes in a radius and then returns this. In case you're wondering what double star means, it just means radius multiplied by radius. So it's radius squared. um, so you can even verify that. So MDN Mozilla, we have yep, double star exponentiation operator, sorry. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's try this code. To end your server, you just simply press Ctrl C. Okay, and the server ends. I don't remember the whole value. Yeah, 26. Okay. I'll just say R. So pi r square, we have it. Now, we can create like this, but then to use a module we'll have to create a new file. I'll call it math.js. So now how do we import it? So till now, if you remember, we were doing the require thing. So for example, require, and then I can pass in the path of this file name, index, something like this. Let's try if this works. Index, something like this. Let's try if this works. So node math dot, oh, we have an error. What does it say? Export function, unexpected token. Okay, it says unexpected token export. Okay, so what is going on? Let's check. Node export import. Okay, and then you can just go to this node.js API. So ECMAScript modules. Okay, so ECMAScript modules are the official standard to package JavaScript code for reuse. That's what we want to do. Modules are defined using a variety of import export statements. That's what we tried to do. Okay, so one way of doing was export function area. Another way is function area, but then in the end you mention export and then area. But the following example of an ES module imports the function from add2.mjs. Okay, so .mjs, M stands for module. Let's try that out. So index, I'll say rename to M, and then math, I'll mention M over here. Let's see if this works. Does it? Now must use import to load ES module. Okay, so import area from the file name. Okay, still an error. What does it say? Warning, to load an ES module type module in the package. We don't have a package.json, or use the .mjs extension. Okay, I'll rename even this to mjs. Let's try again. Still an error. What does it say? Cannot find module math.js. Okay, but we haven't mentioned math.js. Okay, sorry, my command was wrong. So node math.mjs. Still an error. Experimental warning. The ESM module loader is experimental. Okay. The requested module index.mjs does not provide an export named default. Okay. It should have a default export default. Alright, let's try again. Finally, we have something working. What is going on? We just want to use simple import export. Why all this mess? You might be asking. Well, so to put it, let's start from the beginning. Okay. So if you search for import export, let's say in MDN Mozilla developers, the official JavaScript documentation, if you see, we have export and import. Let me search for them. Yep, so we have export, we have import. Now in export, so the export statement is used when creating JavaScript modules to export live bindings to functions, objects. So we can export anything, variables, objects, functions, anything, the array, whatever we want. Okay, we have two kinds of exports: named exports and default. So named exports, 0 or more exports per module. Default, 1 per module. So what they're trying to say is, first of all, I can have many exports. I can export this, x, let's say y, 1. So right now I'm exporting 4 things: 3 constants and a function. But then there can be multiple export statements, but export default can be only one. That's one thing. Okay, so they've given a lot of examples. You can take a look. There are 2 different types of export: named and default. Okay, we know that. We exported. So what's the difference between the named ones and the default ones? Well, default ones, when I'm importing over here, I don't need to specify the name for the default one. Okay, so what does that mean? Now, since finally we have things working, I can show you a demo, and we'll also see why things were working and why things are working, were not working before and are working now. We'll also cover that. So I say node math.mjs, I get a function area. Great. Let's say I say something like lorem. I don't have anything named lorem in this file. Let's try it again. I still get the function area. Okay, I still get that function. Why? The export default, it's okay if I don't even give it a name. Okay, I can import that using any name I want. So when there is export default over here and I say import blah 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 from this file, if that blah 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 does not exist in that file, the default one is given to me. Or what I can do is I specify the name of the thing that I want to import. Okay, we have the function again returned. Okay, so we have the function. Let me try it like this. Yep, so now I finally get the value of the pi. So if you just give any name over here, so any name means default. Okay, but if I give it a braces and then specify the name, I get that export, that thing that was exported. In case of default, you can give any name, but in case you want to import any of these things, then you need to specify the name. Okay. Okay, so what else? Okay, we got this. You can import multiple like this. Okay, in curly braces. Also, you can export all things. So mainly the way like most of people who write modules, or they try to export things, so they just define everything and in the end they export everything in one line, except the default one, it's exported wherever they want. So this is just a common practice. Okay, import cube. Okay, so we covered this. Okay, and in the end, also in the MDN side, you would see obviously IE doesn't, nothing works in IE. So also you would find node.js over here. Okay, in which features, in which version of Node.js does this work? So default and export, they work in this version. Okay, so they would also, if you expand, you would see which version it started working in, and everything. So I have Node version 13, which is the latest LTS version. Okay, similarly we have the a guide on import. Okay, all right, so this is like the common JavaScript guide. It's not the Node guide, but it's the JavaScript guide. Now what does Node have to say? So we saw the basics of import export, but when we were trying, we didn't things didn't just work like that. No, I had to go through the error messages and see what's working, what's not working. In the end, I renamed both of the files to .mjs, and only then I was able to use the import export feature. Okay, so experimental support for ECMAScript modules is enabled by default. Node.js will treat the following as ES modules when passed to Node as the initial input or when referenced by import. So file endings in .mjs, that's what we did. We did file endings in .mjs and then the import export worked. Or file ending in .js, which we had earlier, but then when the nearest parent package.json file contains a top level field type with a value of module. Okay, so now these days, if you're doing front end or back end work in JavaScript, you would usually have a package.json file. Okay, let's delete these extra files. Okay, now let's create a package.json file. The package.json file is supposed to have JSON data. They said if when the nearest parent package.json, so nearest meaning either in the same directory or in the, if not the same, it will look for in a top directory, a directory above node demos, it contains a top level field. So a top level field, so in package.json will have one set of root curly brackets. Inside that many properties would be defined. That's what you would commonly see in a front end or a back end project. So what they mean, top level, so nothing like this. So like this won't work. Okay, type module has to be in the first level of the object. Now let's rename the files to .js and see if this works. Let's try. Yes, things work. All we needed was a package.json file with an object saying type module. Okay, great. What else? Node.js will treat as common JS all other forms of input such as .js. Okay, what does that mean? So till now the built-in modules that we were using, we were not importing like import fs from file system module and then we get the fs object for the file system, or same goes for path or os or http. The syntax that we wrote was this, and now we are saying import export. So what is this for? Well, this require syntax is the old syntax. That was the syntax by common JS. Okay, so before we had ES modules, or before we had these import export keywords built into JavaScript. Okay, they came in this version. So ECMAScript specification ECMA 262. So this is the whole documentation of ECMAScript. And so, but quickly we can find out what is ECMA 262. Okay, let's see in Wikipedia. Search for 262. Okay, ECMAScript. Okay, 262. There are 10 editions of ECMA 262 published. Work on version 10 of the standard was finalized in June 2019. All right. Okay, so coming back. So this require thing, how to make that work? How was that working? I'll go to index.js. So once we have everything defined in our file, let's say I want to import the function area. Exports.area equal to area. And then in the math.js, I'll say const area require index.js console.log area. Package.json I'll delete. Let's see how this goes. Again an error. Okay. Cannot find module index.js. Okay. Why? Let's say dot slash. Let me give it a path. A relative path. Now it works. Just file name doesn't. You have to give it a path. Even if it's a file in the same directory, you have to at least give dot slash. Okay. Does it work? And this is an object. Okay. Object. So accessing the function area would mean obj.area. See? Okay. .js, is that compulsory or can we do without? Yep. Okay. So dot slash and the file name at least, or the .js. So this is the old way or the common JS way of doing things. Okay. The ES6 way is import export. But for that you need a package.json with at least one property saying type module. Okay. Okay. So finally we covered this part. All right. Now talking about package managers, most of the modern languages, they have their own package managers. For Python there is pip. Okay. For PHP there is Composer. For .NET there is nuget. For Ruby I think there is Ruby Gems. As far as I might be wrong, it's called Ruby Gems. And then for Node there is npm Node Package Manager. Also a funny thing, so the npm site, if you open the home page, you will see natural polyglot machine. I refresh it. Does it change? Okay, I'll click on this. Notorious Party Muppets, ninjas practicing multi-dimensional nifty procrastination machine. So they give like funny uh, full forms of this npm thing every time you click on this. Okay, the early one was nice. 9 project managers, natural preference for minification. So all right, that's a fun thing that I noticed a few days ago. All right, so no matter which language you're working on, you will be dealing with a package manager. So what they provide you is, so it's like an open repository of many modules that created by different companies or different developers. You can use them. So If you're working on Python, you want to install a module, or let's say Facebook or Google created a new library in Python to do some data analysis or machine learning thing, you'll have to use pip to install that. In PHP, if you're working with Laravel, you would be using Composer. In .NET, you'll use NuGet. For Ruby on Rails, you would use the Ruby gems. For Node.js, you would use npm. You don't need to install npm separately. Once you install Node, you automatically install npm as well along with it. So you would be working with npm modules, whether it's front end or back end. You would be installing many npm modules. Let's look at one, if I remember the name correctly. So Chalk, that's a nice module. And so if you look at a module on npm JS, you would get a lot of stats about it. So a command to install it is npm I or install. You can write any command, and then the module name that is on npm JS will install it. Weekly download, 62 million weekly downloads. Okay, so this is a very popular module. Size of it, version, most of them are open source, so you get a link to its GitHub directory where you can find the source code for that module. You can see how it's coded. You can look at its code. All right, so what does it do? It gives you terminal styling done right. So let's do it. Npm install Chalk. Okay, I installed npm. Okay, so it creates a node modules directory and installs Chalk, and the additional folders that you see are additional npm modules which are used within the Chalk module. Okay, so in index.js, what I'll do is, let's copy this code, paste it. So const Chalk require Chalk. I know require works. Now we know it works. Chalk.blue hello world. Let's try it out. Hello world. So it's in blue. As simple as that. Okay. Uh, you can check out many. We have red, green, blue, and there are many more methods. Okay. Here's the API. So it has many methods. Different. Okay, we have many more colors: black, red, green, yellow, blue, magenta, cyan, white. So nice. So if you're logging your errors now, you know, just console log. It's too boring. You can use Chalk and console log your errors or messages in a much nicer way. So this is a fun npm module you can use within your just console. Even if it's one file, you will love using it. Also, you would have noticed when we are installing any npm module, this package lock.json, I didn't create it, it got created automatically. But then any future projects that we work on, front end or back end, if we are using npm, we would usually start like this. Let me show you. I'll delete this. I'll delete this. So okay, so everything deleted. So the way we work is, first we say npm init. So this initializes a project, creates a package JSON. You can give the package name, version, description, this, that. So it asks a couple of things. I didn't enter anything. I just pressed enter, and then it created a package.json for me. Name demos, version, description, main file is index, this, that. So a lot of, so once we have this package.json created, then we install whatever modules are required. So for example, now I say npm install chalk, and then if you see in package.json, we have a dependencies property created with the in the object. So whatever npm modules you would install would be listed under dependencies. Okay, you can install any number of modules you want, and then we can use it. Node index.js, yep, it works. So this is how you actually create a simple, you don't create package.json manually usually, you create it using npm init. So this is, and as a developer you can even sign up and then create modules and upload them on npm. You can do that as well. You can do all that. So that was a simple introduction about npm. We tried out a simple module which was fun. So to recap, we looked at modules, modular programming in general. JavaScript does provide us import export now with ES6, but the earlier one before that, what Node used was the common JS way, where you uh, export using the exports keyword, exports dot, and then you add properties to that. And for importing, you don't have the import keyword, but you say require the file name, give it a path. Even though it's in the same directory, you have to say dot slash and then the file name. .js extension was optional. So, and we looked at some of the built-in modules, so file system, reading, writing, the path module, HTTP module, one of the most important ones, console. Console, if it seems boring, you install the chalk npm module, OS module that gives us information about our OS. So yeah, user-defined modules. We created a simple one for the area function. We tried exporting using import export, the modern ES6 way. We did it even the old-fashioned way. The common JS way was using the exports keyword, exports dot area equal to then the function name, if you remember. And then we looked at the npm modules, the way we use it. And the correct way, better way of using it is you create a npm project first using npm init. Once you have the package.json, then you install the modules will be listed in your package.json. So yep, I think it was fun. Fun little introduction to modules. We had a look. We know import export doesn't work out of the box directly in Node. Either you name your file extension as .mjs, or if it's .js, you should have a package.json file where you defined a property at the top level in it saying type module. So I think that was it. It was a fun little session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, come back tomorrow for another fun session. Thank you again.